So the next poem we're looking at is Nightsong City, a poem by South African poet Dennis Brutus. I've put a little bit of a biography of Dennis Brutus here for you, but it's not strictly speaking necessary for an understanding of the poem. He was an interesting chap. He was banned. He went into exile, all of those things that happened to people of color living in South Africa during the apartheid era, which is what he was. He was a colored man living in Port Elizabeth at the time that he wrote this poem. So you're familiar with that sort of background, and I've included it there for you, but it's not strictly speaking necessary for your interpretation of the poem. So we'll just go straight on to an analysis of the poem. Fortunately, this is a lovely, simple poem, so it won't be too difficult to understand. Of course, you know, though, that with the simple poems, the structure is really important. So we're going to spend a little bit more time unpacking the structure. The meaning should be quite clear. Nightsong City. Sleep well, my love, sleep well. The harbour lights glaze over restless docks. Police cars cockroach through the tunnel streets. From the shanties' creaking iron sheets, violence, like a bug-infested rag, is tossed, and fear is imminent as sound in the wind-swung bell. The long day's anger pants from sand and rocks. But for this breathing night at least, my land, my love, sleep well. So as I said, it's simple. It's a nice lyrical poem that expresses one single theme, the love of this poet for a beautiful town, and despite the fact that there are troubles in the country. So it recognizes the troubles in the country, but it expresses love for the country. We know this because the first and the last lines are repetitions of one another, and they're essentially a kind of a lullaby. He's asking, he's pleading for the country to sleep, to rest. And he refers to the country as my love. Sleep well, my love, sleep well. That repetition is a plea almost. It's almost like the plea of a mother who asks their child to be calm, to be at peace, to go to sleep. There's a yearning in that. When you want somebody to sleep, there's the sense that you just want some peace now, and that's what he's asking for, some peace for a place that he loves. This is an extract from a paper, so this is one of the interpretations of the poem. It talks about the fact that he is wishing that the restlessness that is created by something like a sort of a troublesome child would be over. And so that's one way of looking at it. But what I want you to note here is the idea that a lullaby is something musical. It's usually sung. And so this song has that musical quality to it. The music of the poem is created through the sounds that are referred to in the poem. As I said, the structure is simple. It's very balanced. It's 3 stanzas. The lines are of equal length. They are made up of an equal number of words in many cases. So you've got a calm, balanced tone here. It's not edgy. It's not aggressive in any way. It's not designed to be shocking. The structure actually echoes it creates that relationship between the content and the form of the poem, because the content is a request for peace. It's a request for balance, for calm. So then you would also have a kind of a balanced structure, and that's what you have here. And the tone, similarly, is one of love and pleading at the same time. So you have a quiet, calm tone, not a violent or shocking tone. Even though it does actually refer to aspects of violence, and even though it does indirectly refer to the apartheid regime, it doesn't do so in a way that is calculated to be shocking or to kind of wake you up. It actually is a request for that to be over, to be at peace again. So let's start out by looking at the way that sound is used in the poem. You'll see that sound is created by referring to a couple of things that make the sound. The creaking sheets of the iron shanty, the iron sheets of the shanties, a bell, a panting. Now, what's interesting about the sounds is that although the sounds themselves are what creates the lullaby, they aren't actually referring to things that are good. I mean, he's talking about the iron sheets of the shanties in the township, and he refers to the fact that fear is so present in everything. Imminent means that it is pervasive, it exists inextricably within everything. There's so much fear, and it exists so much within everything that it's like the sound of a wind swung bell. In other words, when a bell is swinging in the wind, it's inevitable that there's going to be some sound. And that's what the fear is like. It's so present that it's palpable. You can almost hear it. And he talks about panting. That's another one of the sounds. But what is it that's panting? It's anger. So you've got an interesting kind of contrast here. On the one hand, you've got the sound, which is creating this lullaby. But on the other hand, the sound is referring to things that are quite unpleasant and negative in the context of the country. So that's what makes this poem interesting, what makes it work. I'm just pointing out there a little bit of assonance for you there with the anger pants from sand. You should be able to recognize that without me pointing it out. But while we're talking about sound, be conscious of the things that not only the direct references to sound themselves, but the way in which words are used to create sound and the sound devices within the poem, because that's obviously going to be quite an important aspect of the poem. As I said, because it's a lullaby and because it's got that musical component to it. Just added there the definition of imminent for you as well. It's that idea of something being pervasive, in case you weren't sure what that meant. The next thing that we're going to look at is reference in the poem to things that are actually quite violent. So again, as I said, although it's a lullaby, there's this constant indirect reference to things that are not good. Look at all of the words in the poem that refer to an idea of violence. The docks are restless. There's police cars. They run about like cockroaches. Cockroaches are gross, and you don't want them. So that that's a specific image of violence there. And he specifically says violence is like a rag, a bug-infested rag. Look at that particular image there. The violence is like a rag that is tossed around the shanties. So the violence exists within those townships all the time. It's everywhere. It's like an insect. It's like a cockroach. You don't want it. It's gross. It's abhorrent. It's unwanted. And it's ubiquitous. Ubiquitous is a word that means it's everywhere. It would be useful for you to learn that word because it's a nifty word and it will impress people if you use it. The next thing that we look at is the reference in the poem to, the political state at the time. So although it's in linked with all of the other images, you can see here you've got reference to the police cars which cockroach through the tunnel streets. I've listed there all of the connotations of each of these words. A tunnel suggests almost a kind of an imprisonment, an escape from imprisonment. It refers to the way in which people were living. The police cars are a constant reminder of violence around every corner. There isn't the fact that the police cars cockroach, the fact that cockroach is used as a verb in this case, and that it's what the police cars do, tells you that what the police cars do is not good. There aren't any positive connotations to the police. The shanties refer to unpleasant living conditions. The anger is everywhere. The panting is a sign of exhaustion. Obviously exhausted from working, usually horrible work, or exhausted from being anger, but it's everywhere. It's palpable. So those are all things that refer to the political situation. If you think about it, I mean, it's incredible because it's a short little poem, but it manages to refer to a lot of things. But, as I said, it's also a poem that talks about peace. The harbour lights glaze over the restless docks. It's almost like they cover it, they smooth it over. So even though underneath it all is a lot of restlessness and fear and violence, maybe from a distance or maybe the way the lights cast their light over it, it's almost like they create a sort of a mist of peace over that place. And this phrase, this breathing night, is a restfulness. The breathing, the in and out, it creates a sense of calm. It's a time, and nighttime in particular, is a time to move away from the restlessness and to just be at peace. So ultimately, as I said, it's just a simple poem that quite cleverly and in a short space of time gives you some image of both the ugliness and the beauty of the country. And essentially, all it is a poet expressing his love for his country and expressing that he wishes that this country that he loves would be at peace.